I'm here in Cumbria in northwest England on the coast of the Irish Sea in the little town of St Bees, about to head off with my hiking partner Jude on what will be a 300 odd kilometre odyssey on the coast to coast path, crossing from the west side of England across to the east. And along the journey we go through three magnificent national parks, the Lake District and then the Yorkshire Dales and finally the North Yorkshire Moors, before we get to Robin Hood's Bay across on the North Sea. But one of the traditions for those that walk this path is to go down to the beach, pick up a pebble and take it across England and deposit it on the other side in the North Sea. Today we've got 24 kilometres to our first port of call on the coast to coast path, Ennerdale Bridge, and according to the guidebooks it's supposed to be a fairly easy day. Some rolling territory, nothing too steep, but a magnificent view at the moment off to the side and out over the Irish Sea. Well, this part of the coast to coast path just at the start is very definitely cliffside walking. There's not a lot of margin for error from the track just here to a fall of probably 80 to 100 metres. The first real landmark on the coast to coast path, this is the St Bees lighthouse. This was built in 1865. The original was built in 1718, but unfortunately was burnt to the ground. But this one still operates today, making sure that seafarers remain off the coast. Finally turned off what has been an incredibly rugged and picturesque coastline. So we've done about 7 k's now and have made the turn inland, so starting to head in an easterly direction, which we will for the bulk of the walk. Walking into Sandwith, which is our first little hamlet along the way, heading from west to east. Not sure if they've even got a little cafe in here, but we did get a packed lunch this morning from our overnight accommodation. About 10 kilometres into the coast to coast. As I mentioned when we set off, about 310 kilometres was actually devised by a chap by the name of Alfred Wainwright, who back in 1973 came wandering through this area, loves his hiking and walking, and he devised a walk that actually linked a whole lot of right-of-ways across the countryside, and it became known as the coast to coast path. It's also sometimes called Wainwright's Walk as well. We haven't seen so much of it today, but in recent times a lot of money has been spent, nearly £5.5 million, to upgrade the signage and also what's underfoot in some areas. And in March this year, 2026, it was actually designated as part of the National Trail. So it is one of the final stages. There is a trail that goes all the way around the coastline of England, down the west, along the south and up the east. And this is a connection point now that goes across the country. This is quite something. As a former sports broadcaster in Australia, I've just come out of a lightly forested area and I could hear blokes shouting and yelling, and I have come across a cricket match. This is Seatoller, which is the next little village we're about to go through, playing Barrow in Finesse, which is where we stopped on the train at one point, actually coming up from London. So quite remarkable. This beautiful little cricket ground has just popped up in the middle of nowhere on the early stages of our coast-to-coast path. I mentioned before Alfred Wainwright, the man who is responsible for linking all the public paths to make the coast-to-coast path. The people of Moore Row here, a little community built this statue for him, and it was unveiled back in 2007. Just made it to the start of our first climb on the coast-to-coast path. From where I'm from in Australia, we call what we're going up a hill. In this part of northern England, it's known as a fell. And this first one's quite poetic. It is Dell Fell that we are climbing. Nothing too radical, but it's the first time we've really had an incline so far today. Down off Dell Fell, and I didn't take much video coming down. I have to say it's a rather technical descent. It probably hasn't rained for a while, but there are still some boggy and damp patches and a little bit of slippery stone as well. So on descents like that, always best to put the GoPro away and just concentrating on getting down in one piece, which I have done. We haven't got too far to go now to get through to Ennerdale Bridge to complete day one, but yeah, that was quite a descent. Beautiful though. The sound up there, well, there wasn't any. We were in the leeward side of the hill up there coming down, and when you just stopped, utter silence, couldn't even hear a bird. Absolutely magnificent. The last few hundred metres of the day coming towards Ennerdale Bridge, which according to what I've seen has a population of only 200. 25.7 kilometres we did today, a couple of little detours, one including seeing Alfred Wainwright's statue. We thought that was pretty much a must, and going up around the lighthouse as well at St Bees. Stunning today, absolutely stunning. The walk out of St Bees, the clifftop walk, absolutely magnificent, and then wandering through some meadows, some farmland, almost little forests at times, with a little bit of overhang of foliage. Terrific start to the coast-to-coast path. I can see why people rave about it. We're going to have a beautiful dinner tonight. Start it all again tomorrow. About to kick off day 2 on our Odyssey here. Got 24 kilometres ahead of us, a lot of it alongside a beautiful lake, Ennerdale Lake. Now we do have to make a correction from yesterday. There's a lady I'm looking at just off right of camera here who gave me a bad piece of information. I kept saying we were climbing Dell Fell yesterday. It was, what was it, Jude? Dent Fell, D-E-N-T, so not as poetic and as rhyming as I thought. Anyway, there's a little bit of light drizzle around. We're probably going to have it for quite a bit of the day. The time to hit the track. Coming up towards Ennerdale Water now, which is quite a extensive body of water. There are 2 ways around the lake. You can go on the south side or the north side. The information we've received is on a wet weather day like today, it is far better, safer if you like, to go around the north side. So we're going to take the information we've been given by the locals and do just that. Just past the head of Ennerdale Water now. So look down to the right, there's a little bit of a stream heading down into the lake. Very picturesque, that particular walk, with the low level cloud and the mist across the lake at times. Look very, very pretty. Speaking of mist, there's a momentary break from overhead. We've had the umbrellas down for about the last 800 metres, which is nice, not too long now. And it will return, no doubt, as far as the forecast is concerned. But for the moment, just walking alongside a beautiful little brook. Well, we found a beautiful little place of respite here. This is the Black Sail Hut. It's the most remote youth hostel association establishment anywhere in England. You can only get here on foot. And lo and behold, the sign behind me here has been erected by local friends of this particular area in regard to Sir Chris Brasher, who actually was a pacer when Sir Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile back on the 6th of May 1954 at Oxford University. He was a great outdoor lover, but a lovely plaque here, and this is the Black Sail Hut. So a nice little break, go inside, have some food, and then back on the trail again.
Those plans to bring the fence into your garage, so your garage will be the boundary. Doesn't look kind of...
We're onto our climb now, and it is very rocky underneath, so you really do need to keep your eye on where you're placing your feet. Still a little bit of light mizzle or drizzle around. Doesn't take long though before it can really soak you. So the brolly's still up, and we start to head up. Three-quarters away from the top of our peak at the moment, and again the camera doesn't really do it justice, but as I look around you can actually see virtually light cloud wafting by, so the cloud has really descended. I was going to put the drone up actually about 100 metres ago thinking I'd do that at the top, but now that I've got here it's quite pea soupish directly over the back, so we'll just have to do with the GoPro for the time being. This is quite the experience, walking at the top of a hill, and it really is only a hill, it's not a mountain, but actually walking in cloud cover. It's quite special. Perfect day really. You wouldn't want to be up here with a howling wind and torrential rain, and in essence you really wouldn't want to be up here, to be honest, with a blue sky, because you get that most places in the world, but to be walking in cloud, pretty special. Making our way up the driveway of Grasmere, which looks to be a very pretty looking hotel. We've had two beauties already. Coming to the end of the day, let's have a look at the watch. 24.5 kilometres for today. Started very flat for about the first 10 k's, went along Ennerdale Water, which was beautiful because it was cloudy and misty, and every now and then the cloud would lift and you'd see the hills on the other side of the lake, and then all of a sudden it would descend again. And then we ascended later in the day. Magnificent being up on top of one of the hills here and being able to look down virtually through nothing. At times it was almost white out. A new experience for me. I haven't been in that sort of situation before, on the top of a hill where really you can't see more than about 50 metres in front of you. But a terrific day, ended with some fairly rocky descent to get to our accommodation here. But here we are in the little hamlet of Seatoller. We'll get a good night's sleep, a good feed, and we'll go at it again tomorrow. Time to leave Seatoller. The sun is out, beautiful, looking in the distance, so there is some low cloud over some of the hills. Short day today. We've only got about 15 kilometres with one hill pretty much in the middle, and then we roll down into Grasmere, and the company we're travelling with, Raw Travel, who've organised all our luggage transfers and our accommodation, actually have us on a rest day tomorrow. So we're going to take it pretty slowly today and enjoy the scenery and the sights. Once again, 3 out of 3 in regard to our accommodation. This was a beautiful one here in Seatoller, but time to hit the trail for another day. One of the beautiful things, this part of the world being down in valleys, is the amount of moss. Obviously plenty of rainfall around this part of England, but a lot of the logs, a lot of the rocks, a lot of the dry stone walls are covered in magnificent moss, and when you get the right angle with the light, it's absolutely beautiful. Right on cue, we've covered our 5.5 kilometres and starting now to head out of the valley. There's some hills in front of us, one of which this path is going to scythe its way up. So all of a sudden now, rather than being down on the valley floor, enjoying the water and the river, there's going to be a bit of climbing.
They're very fit, very strong. I've got the girl.
Well, that was a little bit tougher than what the guidebook told us. In fact, the guidebook didn't tell us anything about this. Part of it was actually scrambling using hands, knees and feet for about a period of probably 40 or 50 metres. But as you can see, the view is absolutely worth the effort to climb. We've still got a little bit of a peak in front of us, and then we tail away. From what we've heard, passing someone a moment ago, it's a lot easier, the descent, which is good news, than climbing up. But the view, absolutely stunning. As is often the way, it's more strenuous coming uphill, but it's probably more mentally demanding coming down, because you really do need to make sure that you put your feet in the right spots. So everything has its challenges, whether it's up or down. A bit of luxury here, walking on some slabs rather than on the uneven rocky ground. Still quite marshy and boggy either side of the track. And we actually just passed some volunteers, about half a dozen men, about 500 metres back doing some work on the track. Hats off to them. They've walked about 5 or 6 kilometres out from Grasmere, doing some manual labour and then walking back a little bit later as we come to our next water crossing. One thing I've learnt from Jude, who was really my hiking mentor, I only took up hiking 5 years ago when I was 58, but one of the things she always said to me was to stop and make sure you turn around, because so often when you're on the track you're just looking ahead, looking at what your destination, what the next challenge may be, either a rise or a steady fall. But yeah, it's important just to stop sometimes, look behind you and see some natural beauty from a different angle. Reached our accommodation for the day after 16.2 kilometres, a little bit longer than the guidebook because we had to walk past, or at least off the path, because we're staying right in the heart of Grasmere in a beautiful hotel, and it's a beautiful little place. Looking forward to wandering around tomorrow on the rest day. The weather today could not have been any different than what it was yesterday, which was low cloud, and walking in low cloud on the hills and even low cloud down near Ennerdale Water. But today a lot of blue sky, which made the views from up high all the more spectacular. Spectacular climbers too. The big hill today had to be on all fours, scrambling for about 40 or 50 metres at one point. It was so much of a crag and so steep. But another great day out on the trail, a rest day tomorrow to rest the legs, and then we're back on the track again the day after.